I think we're live. We are.
I think we are.
I love that Facebook is dedicated to continuous quality improvement, which means every time we sign on, we have to learn something new. Good morning.
Keeps your mind fresh. Good morning, Melinda. How are you? Hope everything's good with you.
He says cheerfully. I know it's really kind of cold up where you are, Melinda. It's really kind of cold here too. 50.
In Florida, temps that's basically 20 below.
She said, thanks, I'm good. Well, I always now have to get on here earlier to make sure that I'm able to figure out all the things that Facebook needs me to do to make this happen. So thanks for joining us early, Melinda. You gave us someone to talk to besides each other early on.
It's always good. Let's see here.
All right, so it's 9:59. Are you opening with music?
I didn't have anything.
Okay.
I didn't have anything to put on. What? Oh, come on now.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Ready? Let's start.
I think I'm ready now.
Let's start. Wait, it's not 10 o'clock? Not 10 o'clock? 10 o'clock!
It's 10 o'clock now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Maureen Rulison.
And I'm Brian LeBLanc.
And we are
Dementia Strong.
So I hope everyone is staying warm and safe. I know there's a lot of people without power, and so our hearts go out to them. I can't even imagine. I also see that people are having to line up for water and food, and we joke about it being cold here in Florida, but nothing like that.
No.
So everyone's in our prayers. And today's subject is the importance of having and documenting the hard conversations. And
we've had quite a few. We
have. And this week we had a particularly difficult one. And if you're new here to We Are Dementia Strong, we share our experiences. We share our way of dealing with them. And we give you our thoughts. They in no way, shape, or form are what we think is right for everybody. They're right for us. So what we really appreciate is when people hear something we say and they know something different or they think something different. Share. Put your thoughts and your opinions in so that we can learn from you. So before we get started on this, we said good morning to Melinda. Thank you again for joining us. And we have Mike here.
Mike Nixon.
Hey!
Our day is complete.
Good. I need a break. And so we're going to talk about the importance of having and documenting hard conversations. 2 things happened this week. Do you want to share what they are, or do you want me to?
You go ahead. 2
things happened in our life this week that have brought us to this conversation. One was that we got Brian a new primary care physician, who, by the way, we both think is awesome.
She is awesome.
And when we were at the doctor's appointment, I brought up something to her that Brian and I had discussed and I thought agreed upon. And that was that we wanted to get Brian involved in the Bird Center. It's the Alzheimer's Center here in Tampa, associated with the University of South Florida. And so there's a process you have to go through to get in there. And we were asking his primary care physician to help us start that process. So she ordered a CT scan. Well, when when it came up on the calendar the day before the test, it upset Brian. And do you remember why it upset you?
I think it was something like I didn't want to know if I was progressing or not. It was, I mean, I know that I have progressed. I just didn't want to how much I have progressed. And it was just kind of scary to me.
Plus, to my knowledge, I mean, when I was talking with him, he had not shared with me that he'd never had a CT scan.
Right.
So he didn't know what a CT scan was, and you know what I did? I did that famous assume. I assumed he'd had one, so I didn't prepare him for what a CT scan was. And just a little caveat here, he did have MRIs, but we cannot get those MRIs. We have contacted the doctor. We're trying to find out where he had them done. I mean, this was done in 2014, and we can't get them. So our doctor now has to put us through, because of insurance, the progression of doing things.
Right.
So that when we get everything for the bird center that they need, we'll have followed the steps. So Brian got very upset about it. And when we sat down and we talked about it, when I realized he was upset, I was trying to ascertain why he was upset, and he shared with me, as he just shared with you, that it was because he didn't want to know for certain that he had progressed. He didn't want to see the evidence. And one thing, I really need to give myself big old kudos when I do something right lately, because I've not been doing things right lately. I realized when his emotions were up here, it wasn't the time for us to talk about. So I kind of walked away from the situation and waited until later on when I could ply him with alcohol to have the discussion. So I can't open that wine bottle. I have to get him to do it for me. So after we got done with our day and we're going to eat dinner, I had him open the wine. And we sat down, we ate, and after dinner was over, I brought up to him that I needed to know if he was still on board, that we wanted to get him associated and affiliated with the Bird Center, because what we had discussed is that if he is not engaged in some place that is on the cutting edge of everything, he won't be eligible to get whatever the cutting edge ends up being. So after we talked about it, you felt more comfortable with that was our decision, right?
Right.
And it was your decision.
Right. Yes.
And so then we went and got it, and guess what?
Nothing.
That's right. It took 3 minutes, and it really only showed, when we got the results, it said that there was nothing wrong. So we decided he didn't have Alzheimer's. We were excited. We were ready to, give up everything we'd started on this and just go on our life.
Go to Tahiti.
Yeah, we're going to go to Tahiti. And so I messaged his doctor, because I thought maybe I should just make sure that I was reading this correctly. And she said, no, a CT scan doesn't show Alzheimer's, so we're back.
Yeah. But we took that initial step so that it could show, I don't know what they do. Maybe it's I think it's what do you call it?
It's just a step.
A step.
I think they look for the insurance company looks for the least expensive way that they can resolve an issue, and so they make you go through the steps. Melinda asked a question, and she said if the Bird Center, we were interested in clinical trials. Yes, that's one of the reasons we wanted to get him there, was the clinical trials. So thank you for asking that question, Melinda.
And before Maureen came into my life, the problem that I was having is I could not get involved in any trials because I didn't have a care partner, and that's one of the things that they required. And it was one thing after another, but now that I do have Maureen, that she's on top of everything. She does more things than I even know.
So I wanted to point out that
thank you.
Mike Nixon used the correct term when we were talking about why they wanted a CT scan. It's a benchmark. So since we couldn't get your old MRIs, they're looking to set a benchmark for what is normal for you now.
Right.
So thanks, Mike. Couldn't think of that term. You are right. So that was the first thing that happened that made me think I need to start writing things down, because I'm not going to remember everything, number one. And number two is that by maybe Brian and I writing things down where he can have them to easily look at, it might help him to be like a memory book. We had this discussion and this is what you decided, and this isn't like me saying I'm right. This is, I can't imagine if I couldn't remember everybody I had a conversation with in the last, let's say, week, and now the results of those conversations were affecting my life, and if I couldn't remember, I can't imagine how frustrating that would be. So I wanted Brian to have a tool that didn't require him to ask me or doubt me or say my very worst thing that he says that drives me absolutely insane. I have no choice but to believe you. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you do. You've got plenty choices.
I have plenty choices, but none that would be in my favor.
So we've started this book of writing down the major things that Brian and I discuss and his decisions about them. And that way also, if something happens to me, there's the book. And then the second thing that came into our life this week, and actually came into our life again this week, was I listened to an interview done with Kelly Bone. Kelly Bone is a woman who is living with early onset Alzheimer's, and she has made it her mission in life to be able to choose when she dies and how she dies. She does not want to have to go through the end stages of Alzheimer's. It's her choice. And she's come up against some huge brick walls that aren't going to let her make that choice here in the United States. And it made me think about decisions that Brian and I had talked about for himself when it comes to those stages, that stage in his life and what he wanted. And while we've done some videos and while we have certainly written it down and gotten legal documents and all that, there's a few things that Brian gives me a different answer to every time I ask him the question. And so...
not on purpose.
Oh, no. No, but the thing with Kelly and finding out where she can do the right to die was that Switzerland was probably her only option, because here in the United States, to do right to die, you have to be competent. And once you have received a diagnosis of any type of dementia, the law says you're no longer considered competent. Now, in some cases it does, but in this case it doesn't. And so she's no longer allowed to make that decision for herself because she has received the diagnosis. But she could go over to Switzerland and she could make the decision. Well, in Switzerland, a woman living with dementia made the decision early on that she wanted to have her life ended at a particular time, and she laid out what it was. When that time came and the doctor was getting ready to administer to her, she starts screaming and yelling that she didn't want it to happen. Well, think about dementia and think about not being able to remember what you said. I'm not siding one way or other on this issue, but the doctor went ahead and did it. And so now that is under scrutiny, and she may not have that option. Now, some days Brian will tell me he doesn't want to live when he gets to a certain point. And then on other days he says he wants me to make sure they do everything that they possibly can to continue his life. And so we're going to get some people involved with us, professional people involved with us, because this conversation needs to go beyond Brian and I. And then we're going to document it.
I've seen a lot of folks that were in their last stages, and they could not speak, and there were different things that were going on with them and so forth. And it's not so much me. I don't want to put Maureen or anyone in my family through that. We watched my grandfather go through his Alzheimer's journey, and then we watched our mother. My dad had vascular dementia, but he died from a heart attack. So, but we saw that I don't know, it was almost like they were trapped inside their own body. And I don't want that. I'm not going to be what do you call it when you're doing something, when you're
I keep going and
yeah, I can't think of the word right now. And I've just lost my train of thought.
Woo woo. So you said you don't want to put me and your family through anything.
Right.
And I'm here to tell you that I don't want you to make your decisions based on that.
Right. And it's not just that. It's for me personally. It's just something that I'm thinking about, and some days I will talk in a conversation, and my thoughts change, and so that tells me that I really haven't yet come to a final decision as far as what is going to happen.
Right.
But it's still, you have to have it's not just these types of conversations, it's any type of conversations, even if you don't have a dementia-related illness. You should always have conversations with your family or with your loved ones or with your friends to make sure that they know what you want. What are your
Wishes.
Yeah, wishes. And so, yeah, okay.
And then I would add to that once you have that conversation, it should be documented. And that's for a lot of reasons, but I'm going to say from my perspective, I want this to be something that if anybody questions why I make a decision for Brian that I make, I can at least have something showing that this was based on what he told me he wanted. I know that there's going to be a lot of decisions I have to make that I'm not going to have your specific, instructions, and I know that it's going to take me knowing you as well as I do to make those decisions. But I am very much a big fan of us documenting everything possible. I wanted to say good morning to Phyllis Cruden Fair and to John Miller and Scott Morrison. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's nice to have some people we know and some new people.
Yeah.
And if we think it's cold here up in Canada with Phyllis, it must be unbelievable. So again, on the same topic as we're going through it, a reminder, or if you haven't joined us before, a statement of what I do for profession. I'm a patient advocate, a life care planner, and I help people do exactly what we're having a conversation about, among other things. And so one of the professionals that I want to get to come in and talk with Brian and I is a death doula. I mean, here's people, I'm pretty sure most of us have heard of, doulas that help with birthing us. Well, a death doula births us into the next stage of our life. And so I thought, wow, what a great professional person to sit down and have discussions like this with. And so interestingly, I've been looking for a death doula, and I have gotten some leads, and I want to have Zoom meetings so that we can interview, so that Brian can tell me who he feels comfortable with, and I can find who I'm comfortable with. So that's another professional that I'm going to put into my referral partners list, because the more that I have read and studied about them, and I actually know one person personally, but she's up in Wisconsin, who is a death doula. I think along with hospice, this isn't a replacement for hospice. I think this is a very important thing. And what's your feeling about having someone with you besides me?
Well, the way that I look at it is, and this is not just me. This is a lot of my friends that also have dementia-related illnesses and so forth. They feel the same. But I'd like to ask you this question. If you have the option to live out your life with being 100% healthy, or living your life through, whether it's physical pain, whether it's mental pain, maybe whatever type of
Malady?
Situation that you go through, that is, not good, not healthy, not, why prolong the inevitable? And that's what I'm hoping for. And in my, I'm going to donate all my organs and my brain and eyes and everything to science, to let people either study or how cool would it be to have one of your organs go to someone else to save their life? You know? And so that's sorry. Okay.
You were wanting to ask them a question.
Yeah, I forgot what the question was.
So what are their thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Quality of life is important, Melinda said.
Yeah. And when you don't have that, then what happens? Then your family is going to, and your loved ones are going to be just basically standing around and watching you go down a road that they themselves probably go down. Oh, did I say that? No. I don't know. Go ahead.
Having a tough day today. But actually, this is becoming more regular, isn't it?
I think.
I have no choice but to believe what you said. That's why we're doing videos.
Exactly. But yeah, it's this is a hard life to live, knowing that knowing what your future, I'm not going to say exactly what it looks like, but you have a pretty good idea, whether it's what you have seen or what you have read or things of that nature. And so I really, really try not to think about that aspect, but it creeps in every
Most of the
now
time
and
because
then.
I push it in.
Yeah.
It's not creeping.
I wasn't going to throw you under the bus, but Maureen does things, and I may not agree with them at first, and it pains me incredibly much to say, okay, she was right. And I'm just
doesn't pain him when he points out I was wrong.
You know, it's your care partner or your doctor or whoever is controlling, not controlling, orchestrating your life and so forth. They're there to help, and there we go again.
Can I share what Mike Nixon typed?
Yeah.
He said, yes, always best to make final decisions and notarize documentations ahead of time. That way, wrong decisions are not made upon emotion at the moment. Trusts and powers of attorney have also been a big relief to me, especially now that we're moving into a new stage of my condition and eternity. Yes, I'm very selective, but hey, that's just me. My definition of quality of life does not include being hooked up to machines and bed sores. I'm with you, Brian. Our physical contributions will save lives in the future. We are pioneers and heroes. Yes, you are. Not just your physical contributions, but sharing your lives the way that you, Mike, and Phyllis, and Brian, and so many people that I respect are. Forever and ever, that documentation will be there for people that are studying and trying to find a cure.
if we were not advocates, and help people learn about this. I mean, 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, not many people knew. They knew of the word Alzheimer's, but didn't know what it does, what it did, and how it affects people.
Dr. Richard Taylor was
the pioneer
of getting out there and advocating. Linda Peter Savage, hi, how are you? I hope you're doing well. And she wrote, very hard decisions. Thank you, pioneers and heroes, for sharing them all with us. Exactly. They are. And I hope that when the cure is found, and I hope that's soon, but whenever that ends up being, I hope that all of the brave people with dementia that shared their lives, shared the not so pretty and the not so, glamorous parts of living with a dementia-related illness, I hope they get credit.
I have one other thing to say, that what I'm going to do is, when I do make a final decision, I'm not just going to write it, but I'm also going to make a video. Because people can say, oh, maybe someone else wrote that for you and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do a video so that they can see me speaking the words that what I want and what I don't want.
It's the way the law is going with last wills and testaments,
right.
Video recordings of them. But if you guys go back on YouTube and Facebook and stuff, and you see recordings where Brian's talking about very sensitive things, you'll notice I'm not with him in those videos, because I don't want him to turn to me and want me to fill in a blank form. So anyway, we have... This time flies by. I wish that we could all be together physically. This would be an amazing retreat.
Yeah, it would be.
But we love you all so much and appreciate that you are here encouraging us and being our friends, being our supporters. And we keep you all in our hearts and in our prayers. Anything else you want to say?
No, well... I always have something. Thank y'all for tuning in with us each week, because that just tells us that we're doing something positive, and people seem to like us.
Go to laughteroncall.com and comedycures.org. We were on the Hilarity for Charity CareCon yesterday for National Caregiver Day. And those two websites, I think they're amazing. Go there. We'll talk about that later. Have a good week.
Thank y'all very much.
Bye.